go back once again to our top story at this hour. The Income Tax Department is conducting searches across India over bogus donations made to little-known political parties. The raids are based on reliable intelligence inputs received by the department. Most of these donations are allegedly received in cash, and these little-known outfits are used as tools for the laundering of funds. So as Shravan Sen, our senior editor, was telling us, we go back once again to Shravan. Shravan, it's the biggest ever crackdown, as you were telling us earlier, on bogus political parties, on little-known political parties that are being used for the laundering of funds. As you told us earlier, 50 sites, 50 locations under the scanner, corporate donations also under the scanner. It's over to you for more.
Well, in fact, what's important to point out here is that this is considered to be one of the biggest crackdowns on donation to political parties. These are little-known political parties. In fact, the Election Commission had prepared an exhaustive list. Now, in that list, they were essentially looking at the role of certain political parties and where exactly was the money really coming in from. What's important to point out here is that they are looking at certain bogus donations. These are bogus donations made to little-known political parties, and more importantly, these donations were actually received in cash to these little-known outfits, and they were used as a tool for laundering of funds. Searches were basically being carried out in Ghaziabad, Lucknow, Gurugram, Gujarat, as well as in the national capital. Certain corporate firms are also basically under the scanner for giving donations to political parties through entry operators. This is based on the Election Commission report. As of now, we have been told 50 locations. The number could very well vary because the searches began sometime earlier this morning. That's the latest that we are getting in at this point in time.
Right, Shravan, and what can you tell us about the penalty for those involved? Because that's what we expect the Indian public would want. The next step to be the identification of specific people, and so that the culprits can be identified and they be brought to book. But what would be the penalty for such activities?
Well, in terms of an investigation, it's not really a penalty that you're really looking at. What is going to be important at this point in time is first the identification of those who are behind these bogus donations. Secondly, what is the intention behind these bogus donations? In terms of for the income tax, it is primarily to see that whether at all this was an attempt for tax evasion. Because if you really look at the donation that has taken place, it is through entry operators, which essentially would mean that this was an attempt that has been made by certain corporate firms to turn their black money into white money. What's going to be important to also look at is that which are the political parties that were getting the money, and whether at all there has been any sort of a declaration that has been made by these political parties. So all that put together, important to point out is that we haven't really seen this kind of a crackdown in the past, especially given the fact that political parties have really not come under the scanner. Now, donations that have been received by little-known political parties have also come under the scanner.
Shravan, meanwhile, what are your sources in the IT department telling you about, the kind of inputs that they received? How long these operations could have been continuing? And also, how long do they, before, they can actually come out with a public statement if they do make a kind of public statement?
Well, Income Tax Department going by their usual process, it's very unlikely that they're going to release any statement anytime soon. Perhaps it could take at least another 2 to 3 days. It depends on once the searches are over. It's very unlikely that they're going to end the searches in one day. Unlike what happens in the cases of Central Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement Directorate, the Income Tax Department has a different procedure in place, very, very unlikely that we would be expecting any sort of a statement out of the income tax department anytime soon. Perhaps once the searches are over, only then you would expect the income tax department to come up with a statement. But what all that we know that since these are over 50 locations and this is a massive, it's a massive being carried out, it is certainly going to take some more time before they issue any sort of statement.
So, political donation crackdown in 5 cities, among them Ghaziabad and Lucknow. Shravan Sen, a senior editor on that story, and giving us all the updates as they happen, and putting this mega crackdown on laundering of funds, on money laundering, as little-known political parties are found to be funded by bogus funds. Shravan, many thanks for joining us. Well, we continue with this story. Let's go across to Shravan once again. Shravan, when we talk about, a crackdown like this, well, certainly, as you tell us, there were intelligence inputs, and it's happening in 5 cities. And also, as you told us, political donations, corporate companies under the lens. But as you tell us, tax evasion would be just one of it could be just one of the purposes of such funding. What are the other aspects that the IT department would be looking at and also, when we look at, the purpose of such funding?
Well, there is only one purpose, and that purpose is to find out whether there has been tax evasion or not. There is no other angle that the income tax department would be looking at, because the mandate of the income tax department in itself would essentially be look into an attempt that is being made by certain entities for tax evasion. And more importantly, as far as entry operators are concerned, they were basically utilized for what purpose, and where did the money really come from? That's going to be important. The source of funding and the extent of that particular funding. So that's the concern that the income tax department would have. Thereafter, if the enforcement directorate or anyone wants to take it following process of sheet that is filed by the income tax department, then perhaps it paves the way for other agencies to also step in. But that's a long-drawn process. It's very unlikely it's going to take place anytime soon. Once the searches are basically over, one would basically look at how things are panning out, and only after that you would perhaps expect some more agencies to step in. But it's very unlikely that's going to happen anytime soon. Only the income tax department currently would be looking at exhaustive searches that are being carried out. It's going to take some more time before they end the searches. There is a high possibility that this could spill over a few days before they end the searches.